here we are.
The Institute.
For next level leadership.
It's all about empowering you, allowing you to empower others. It's about awakening the leader that's within you. And I mention this every time, and it's always worth repeating. When the founding fathers of this great country wrote the Declaration of Independence, they intuitively or knowingly, I prefer to think knowingly, included the words that, we believe that we are endowed, and they chose that word carefully, endowed with certain unalienable rights. A few of them are, they didn't mention them all, a few of them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And to that we would add qualities like leadership, amongst many others, where if you attend our institute, you'll learn about some of the ones you already have. And so one of the founding principles that we operate on is that we want to introduce you to that leader, and for you to remember that leader, and then remember to that leader. And just what happens is you begin to lead yourself from the inside out, which is a fascinating process, and and you empower yourself to lead from an awakened state. And the empowered leader not only leads himself from within, but he naturally then has the capability of leading others and empowering those that he or she lead. And the collateral benefit of that is they become empowered as well. And this process happens seamlessly. And there's no fear, oh boy, if my people are empowered, or if they're smarter than me, or if I can't do as well as if they can do. There's none of that, because the presence of that kind of leadership doesn't leave when the leader leaves. And you probably have seen many examples when a leader leaves, an organization kind of goes through a little disturbance in the universe, or sometimes a big disturbance in the universe. But if it's led by an empowered leader, then it goes on seamlessly. In many ways, if you watch a mother leads intuitively. She nurtures her children and empowers them to lead themselves. Simple examples. She feeds them so they can feed themselves. She holds their hands in their fingers so that they can learn to walk, and then they walk on their own. These are all acts of empowerment. And the next level leader is empowered, from which it naturally, as that process, empowers other people as well. And that's what we're saying a few times.
I just want to add to that. I think I see the mission of the Institute for Next Level Leadership as a chain of leaders. As we come into alignment with the leader within us, we then empower others to do the same, and we create a chain of leadership that what we hope is that will be what's needed to develop a better world. So this institute is offering 3 programs. The Crisis Leadership Program that you are participating right now, it's the complimentary program every week right now in Portuguese and in English. The Mastermind Program, which is the 8-month program with individual coaching sessions and group sessions and a community forum. And then the Leading the Leader program, which encompasses everything that the Mastermind program offers, with the individual coaching being geared specifically towards developing your business and enhancing your practices with the teachings from the Institute. And a prerequisite for the Leading the Leader is the Mastermind program. So if anyone is interested or want to learn more about it, feel free to connect with us, send us a message, and we'll have a more in-depth conversation about that. Okay, we have a special way of beginning everything we do, every session, which is our invocation. And today I chose this amazing picture for our invocation. This is a real picture taken by the Vista telescope, or the Hubble Space Telescope. It's a formation of gas and dust of about 10 light years and it's up there in the universe. And I placed this in the presentation today in honor of the space shuttle that was launched this week, that landed successfully in the space station, marking a new era in terms of interspace traveling, done by a private company for the first time ever. So in honor of all of that expansion, this is the picture, and we're gonna come into the invocation of this cosmic companionship that is always with us. You wanna lead us?
Ooh, that's a tall order. I'll do the best that I can.
Yeah.
Okay, if you just take a deep breath with me. Breathe in the loving and breathe out and relax and center yourself. And Father God, Lord God of all creation, we call ourselves into your love and light. And we ask to be cleared, filled, surrounded, protected, and bathed in that loving so that all that remains resides in your will and is for our highest good. We ask that anything that doesn't serve us may be taken to the far reaches of the universe and join this picture that's on the screen and there dispersed into the loving from whence it came. Father, we are grateful for this time together. We are grateful for the wisdom that you impart to us. We ask for that light to go right through the center of this planet and bless not just the planet, but this country as it finds, as it finds a new way of being, a new way to live together, and a new way to love. Allow them to see from the inside out and beyond themselves. Allow us to see beyond ourselves as we interact with one another. And we are so grateful and thankful for this time together. And we thank you and we love you. So be it.
Thank you, Mike. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
It was beautiful. And the majesty that we see in the picture and the majesty that we receive through Mike's invocation is a majesty that lives within us. I think that's worth remembering. So we've had, prior to this is our 5th event. We've had 4 of these before. The first one, we've learned about staying in the now, observing neutrally that tug of war inside of us between our instinct and our intuition. The instinct pulling us towards protection, safety, and survival, our fight or flight mechanism, and the intuition pulling us towards expansion, growth, and evolution, our fly mechanism. Then we started to move forward, balancing that inner tug of war a bit at a time through tiny actions or baby steps, which often look chaotic and crazy, going from one side to another, but are actually very powerful in cumulatively producing great results. Next, we looked at the process of adaptation. The chameleon was the representative of our process of adaptation to change and the many ways in which we often unconsciously resist change, especially when the changes are unfamiliar or confusing to us. We investigated the questions, what are we adapting to? Are we adapting to the environment, or is the environment adapting to us? We began to recognize the mirror effect between us, our perceptions, and what we experience in the outer environment. We realized how our outer environment often mirrors back to us the perceptions that we harbor inside. Last week, we talked about trust. We looked at risk assessment as the external component of trust, which is focused on the people, things, and circumstances outside of us. We also looked at the internal component of trust, which is focused on our own inner attunement and alignment with a quality of trust that lives inside of us. We talked about the many ways in which we often focus our trust solely on external components. And in doing so, we lose our identity because we disconnect with our inner attunement to trust. And instead, we rely on external components to provide us with that sense of trust. In order to attune to the quality of trust inside of us, we have to let go of what is not trust. It actually requires a level of sacrifice. So trust and sacrifice walk hand in hand. And that's why today we're going to deep dive into that notion a little more, and the success tool is sacrifice. Now, I know sacrifice is a loaded word. It's like, oh no, we have to sacrifice. You know, there is an instant association with something unpleasant or undesirable. The meaning of the word sacrifice comes from the idea of religious sacrifices, where an animal or a person was slaughtered as an offering to a higher power. So at a minimum, sacrifices refers to some level of suppression or subordination. And under this definition, you know, why would anyone want to sacrifice? Why would we even want to talk about this, right? But before we answer that question, we're going to show you a short video. I want to alert you before the video starts that this video is a bit shocking for some people. It may be a bit shocking for some people. There is no violence, but there is a lot of screaming. So feel free to adjust your volume if you need to.
And if you have a seatbelt on your chair, you may want to remove it.
Stop that. Okay, here we go. Pay attention to this one.
Yeah, God, it's dead. Well, that's good. It's in the right position. It's really dead. Oh, oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, the water broke. The water broke. The water broke. The water broke. Oh, my God. Oh, my gosh. Oh, oh, my God. Oh my God! Oh, it hurts so bad! Oh. Please get there. Need to take his hands down? I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. I can't. I can't. Oh my gosh, it's coming out! It's coming out! It's coming out! The head is out! Ah! Get the seatbelt! Get the seatbelt! It's in! It's out! Oh my gosh! The baby is out of me, babe! baby. Oh. Oh my goodness, all right. It's a boy. Look at that. Oh. It's gotta be suctioned. It's gotta be suctioned. It's crying, babe. It's breathing just fine. All right? He's not breathing. Yeah, he's breathing. If he's crying, he's breathing. But hold him upside down, babe. Hold him upside down. And pat him on the baby. Oh my gosh. We just had a baby. We did it. High five, babe. It's all right. He came right out of the car. Oh my God. You're beautiful. Oh my goodness, baby boy. Oh my goodness. Oh, I know this girl. He's a boy. He's a boy. Oh my goodness. What do I do? I don't know what to do. Love him. Oh, I love him so much. So I wonder if we still have to pay for using birth center. I don't know what to do.
Okay, so that was intense, but I love this video. I think my birth, you know, when I gave birth, it wasn't nothing like that. And so, but I can relate to her. And I think even man who doesn't give birth can also relate to what's happening here. And I love this video because
I'm not sure.
yeah, sure.
If I ever have to pee a watermelon, I'll relate.
But you can relate to what she's going through,
Lord,
what's going through her body. I find this video to be an amazing demonstration of all the success tools that we have learned so far. You know, this woman is totally in the moment. She's totally present, observing what's happening in her body every step of the way. In fact, it's worth mentioning that pain, any kind of pain, has the effect of bringing us into the moment. The video also shows how things unfold little by little in tiny actions. And although it looked chaotic, crazy, and out of control, all the tiny actions, the removal of the seatbelt and then taking off her pants, they all delivered the successful outcome. Next, it showed the process of adaptation of her body, the movements in her abdomen, the opening of her legs as she prepared for birth. And then lastly, it showed so much about trust. You know, first, it was the risk assessment of the external components. Remove the seatbelt, take off the pants. And then she realized she wasn't doing the birth. The birth was doing her. And in that realization, she comes into attunement, into alignment with this trust inside of her. And she's like, oh my God, I am having a baby. In the beginning, she was saying, I'm not sure I can do this. I don't know if I can do this. And all of a sudden, it is doing her. And she is living trust and coming to that place of, oh my God, I am having a baby. And that moment is a profound and subtle moment of revelation. You see, she knew she was having this baby. She probably heard stories and watched movies about having babies prior to this moment. But up until then, her understanding was intellectual. Once the birth started doing her, she had to sacrifice all her intellectual concepts of it in order to live it viscerally instead. So for trust, to trust what was happening through her, she had to sacrifice so much. And so did her husband. You know, they both had to sacrifice any sense of control of the situation. They had to sacrifice any ideas that they might have as to how the situation should look like. They had to sacrifice what they thought she could or could not do. They had to sacrifice their vision of what they have wished for the delivery of their baby to be. They had to come into the moment in neutral observation and just experience it. So sacrifice is what opened the way for trust to manifest what was meant to be manifested through her.
That's worth saying again.
Yes, sacrifice is what opened the way for trust to manifest what was meant to be manifested through her. Because at that point, she became one with trust. She was in alignment and attunement with the trust inside of her, in her body. She was living trust viscerally. And that is transformational. It's a profound discovery of the obvious, if you will. But the sacrifice into the trust that lies within us is the process of getting out of the way so that trust can manifest through us what we are meant to manifest. So sacrifice is painful, as you saw in the video. It's painful because it's very difficult for us to get out of the way. We resist sacrifice for the same reason we resist adaptation to change. Because sacrifice threatens our sense of control. So sacrifice is painful because it requires us to let go of what we think we should be to become what we are meant to be. Sacrifice is difficult because it requires us to let go of what we think we should be to become what we are meant to be. So now we go back to that question we started with. Why would anyone want to sacrifice? And ultimately, the reason we want to sacrifice is because what lies on the other side of sacrifice far outweighs the pain. And I'm not only referring to physical pain, I'm also referring to mental and emotional pain as well. We want to sacrifice not because it's painful and it's difficult and it's hard. We want to sacrifice because once it's over, we are transformed by it. Once it's over, we become someone we've never been before. Once it's over, we are empowered by a quality, a force within that is far greater than we've ever known. I said this before, and I'm just going to repeat it again. Sacrifice supports us to become what we are meant to be, while letting go of what we think we should be. So how does this apply to our everyday lives? And I'm going to share with you a client's story. She gave me permission to share this story with you. This client was paralyzed by fear due to the pandemic. She had lost her job and she knew that in the end of the month, she would have no more income. Just a year ago, she had gone through a horrible financial challenge with no money for food or rent or to pay for her basic expenses. So she was terrified that this situation was going to happen again. She was definitely in her instinct, looking at her past experience and projecting it into the future. So in our session, I told her, fear is lack of purpose. Our instincts believe in fear because our intuition is not clear enough about our purpose. So that tug of war inside of us between the instinct and the intuition is pulling stronger on the instinct side because the intuition let go of the purpose. So one way to balance that tug of war between her instinct and her intuition would be to sacrifice her fear and strengthen her purpose. So some interesting ideas came up for her about her purpose. She actually showed me a tattoo she had that talked about her purpose of finding that invisible quality inside of her. She started telling me about a beautiful project she's working on. She is working on delivering programs that will support others to find that essential and invisible connection inside of them. She has already developed a whole design on how to do this. And so she started designing the next steps and seeing the next steps unfold in front of her to the point that her fear disappeared. It was a profound shift in her energy. It was a whole transformation from the fear of the past to what's possible in the future. And this is just a small example. But next we have an inspirational piece for you. And this inspirational piece is just an opportunity to sink in this idea of trust within your own consciousness. Allow you to meet sacrifice, to be with sacrifice, to gather the opportunities that sacrifice can offer you in your creative imagination, if you will. So I'm going to share with you a piece that I wrote based on my own experience with sacrifice. This is going to be offered to you as a guided meditation. I wrote this piece for my doctorate dissertation, and I hope that this will support you in awakening to the blessings that come with sacrifice. So for the next couple minutes, I just encourage you to close your eyes and receive the words of this meditation as you relax or sit, or if you would like to lie down. Just allow your imagination to go through this guided meditation for the next few minutes. Here we go. The title of this meditation is My New Friend. My new friend. You see a small, fragile figure sitting on the ground on a dark corner of the road. You know her name is Sacrifice. She lies abandoned on this damp, dark corner. She has been there for a long time. She's actually surprised when she senses you approaching her. After all, no one has ever cared for her. From a distance, she looks almost evil, like a ghost or a demon. She's rarely heard, never understood. No one ever looks at her face to face. Until this day, this is a different day just because you are approaching her. You sense your own despair and you sense hers too. There is really no one else nearby at this time, just her. You walk slowly towards this little fragile figure sitting alone in the shadow. You step towards her in hesitancy. She keeps looking down, pretending she doesn't notice your presence. After all, she has always been ignored, mocked, and even spitted on. But in spite of the hesitancy, you persist slowly and carefully moving towards her. She seems uncomfortable and unsure as to what is about to happen. And in truth, you yourself also are not really sure about her either. You notice she's dressed in dirty, rotten rags, but that doesn't stop you from approaching her. You really have no other choice. She is the only one around. You carefully give one more step forward and in a soft tone of voice, call her name out loud. Sacrifice. She timidly raises her face to look at you straight in the eyes, and to your shock, you see the most sublime view your eyes could ever see. She's a child, a young child, with eyes filled with hope, love, enthusiasm, excitement, and imagination. Her face sparkles like the brightest star in the sky. Her lips, pink as rose, open themselves, revealing the most angelic smile. She sits up a little taller, raising her hands towards you. And without further thought, you reach back to her and hold her little sweet hands. They are as soft as cotton balls in between your fingers. You embrace her like an old friend who had not seen for quite a long time. You play together, the two of you, like two little kids in freedom, innocence, and giggles. When you are sad, she wipes away your tears, your fears, your doubts, and your judgments. She understands your imperfections, your humanness, your darkness. She shows you the horizon ahead, the sun coming behind the mountains, the waterfall in the forest, the flowers, the birds. She smells she smells sweet like a fresh born baby. She giggles like a toddler. She plays like a child. She discovers like a teenager. And she loves like a young adult. She serves like a parent, and she intuits like a wise elder. You are still not completely sure about her. Who is she really? How does she do all of this? Where does she come from? But you don't care, because the more you ask, the less you know. And the more you are with her, the more you be. Release, and now slowly you come back from this meditation. And we're going to take 2 minutes of silence, meditation, or journaling to reflect on these 2 questions. What is ready to be born through you at this time? And what sacrifice are you ready to make? We're going to time 2 minutes for this process. Okay, so we're going to start coming back. The next thing we do is our sharing. Yes, and we're going to start our sharing with something that we put together here. Yesterday, Mike and I were talking about what's going on in LA right now with the riots and the looting. And soon after, we start watching a movie. And in the middle of the movie, our internet simply stopped working. So we went to reboot the internet in the office. And right in front of my very eyes, there was this book by Richard Barrett called What My Soul Told Me. And I opened the book on this chart. And this is a chart that he's referring in the book based on another book called Power versus Forces, the human determinant. I don't think that, I think that's a mistake on the title there. I think it's the determinant of human behavior.
The Power versus Forces.
Yeah, Power versus Force by David Hawkins. And David Hawkins talks about the map of consciousness. He talks about this list of emotions, if you will, or experiences. And he talks about how we evolve through these levels of, he calls it like a vibration, emotional vibration. And he says that fear encompasses all these emotions down here. And where we are in these emotions, we are actually working with the force. We are being forceful within our universe. And then as we move into higher vibrations, we experience other emotions. The ones up here, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, enlightenment, those are the ones related to love, where we actually experience the true power of the cosmos in support of us. Let's put it that way. Now, the bridge between the two is these two areas here of trust, neutrality, courage, and affirmation. And I point this out because it has so much to do with what sacrifice is all about. It has so much to do with what we are talking. Because if we can come to this place of sacrifice, we jump from a vibration of fear to a vibration of love. And we do that by the courage to trust in the neutrality of what is. So in face of what's happening with the riots and the looting and all the protests in LA, I think the question that I pose out there is, what does it take? What does it take for each one of us to sacrifice the fear, to sacrifice all of this list of things down here so that we can move up? And I think Mike had some interesting observations about this as well. Do you want to share them?
Yeah, well, I think they'll come out and you share, and I'll react to those.
Yeah?
Yeah. So I think what we really want to do now is just ask, is there anything that comes present for you during this time of sharing? And as we turn off the recording and the videoing, any questions or comments or learnings, anything that about what Inely presented that struck you, or you may have some questions on what stood out to you this evening?
And I want to honor the time and just place a blessing on everything we shared here and everyone in this call, everyone around us, our families, our cities, the entire world at this time, that which is ready to be sacrificed with grace and ease, so that which is meant to come forward can come forward in glorious and wondrous and amazing ways, and that we can partake of that with our hearts full of love and friendship and connection and enthusiasm and imagination. This is the world we are creating, and I love you guys. I love to be with you in this process of creation. Thank you for being here.
Really cool.
We hope to see you next week. Come back next week.